Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama, right here in downtown Northport, just a couple of miles away from Bryant-Denny Stadium. You're watching the Wednesday edition of the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com, proud part of the BamaCentral Broadcasting Network. We want to encourage you to subscribe to other BamaCentral Broadcasting Network podcasts, Blue Collar Unplugged, Matthew Gibson, Blake Byler, and Jacob Pickle. But we're going to have a fun show right here on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. You're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. You can find us anywhere that you can get your podcast at Joe Gaither 6 on any and all the social media machines. We had a little bit of fun yesterday talking to Josh and Dothan about his reaction to the Iron Bowl, and we talked to Martin Houston, host of the Martin Houston Show and 1992 national champion for your Alabama Crimson Tide yesterday about the Iron Bowl and about the SEC championship game. It's time to start figuring out who Alabama is playing and who's really going to be on the other side. You've seen the big bad wolf from the other side of the conference for the last 2 years, back-to-back champions, and it's time for Alabama's next crack at Georgia after losing the 2021 national championship game in Indianapolis. We're proud to welcome on Anthony Dasher of UGASports.com. Anthony brings us great expertise and it's covered Georgia for a long, long time. Anthony, how are you doing today, sir?
Joe, I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Thanks so much for joining us. We're here to talk about the SEC Championship game, 2:30, 3 o'clock Central Time for right there on CBS, the last SEC on CBS game. Tell everybody who hasn't paid attention to Georgia, what's different about this year's Georgia team than the last 2 years' teams that also won national championships over there in Athens?
Well, I guess the biggest difference is just the faces. I mean, new quarterback and Carson Beck, different running backs, Kendall Milton, Dejon Edwards getting more of the opportunities this year. Defensively, no Jalen Carter, but, Nazir Stackhouse, Michael Williams, who people I think are probably familiar with just a little bit. But otherwise, it's a Georgia team that just is, playing very similarly to, what they have the past 2 years. Maybe not quite, the overall talent. I mean, considering, Georgia's lost all those guys to the NFL over the past 2 years, but still a very good team playing some good football.
Absolutely. And so they're coming into Saturday's matchup 12-0, a 5-6, 4.5, wherever you're looking, point favorite this week. Carson Beck, obviously you kind of hit it a little bit. Carson Beck's coming in and play for Stetson Bennett. The first parts of the season, Georgia kind of grinds through and gets wins. The last 5 or 6 weeks, it's been all guns blazing for Georgia's offense. Is Carson Beck, how do you expect him to hold up in what will be probably the biggest game of his career so far?
I think he'll do fine. He's a very calm, cool, collected, type individual. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on this guy coming in. I mean, replacing somebody like Stetson Bennett, you win 2 straight national championships, and there's going to be a lot of eyes on you, a lot of expectations. But he's held up fine. He had the game in Auburn where he started off slow, really kind of found himself in the second half. And since that game, he's been playing extremely well. In fact, until last week's game at Georgia Tech, he had thrown for at least 250 yards in every game that Georgia, has played this year. So I don't think the moment will be too big for him. Again, he's played in some big contests this year. Obviously, yes, this will be the biggest one against the biggest opponent, that they have seen, to date. But they're very confident what Carson Beck can do.
Well, talk about just how challenging it is, obviously, replacing Stetson Bennett. But secondarily, for those who haven't paid attention to Georgia's season, Georgia's been cycling skill position players in and out of the lineup due to injury all year long. Obviously, Brock Bowers getting the most attention with his ankle injury, but really not having a set wide receiver core throughout the year and just kind of having a lot of moving parts. So just Carson Beck's ability to just kind of roll with whoever's out there and just play consistent football.
Yeah, the stats tell a story on that. He's consistently every game he'll complete passes to 9 or 10 different receivers. I mean, you look at Georgia's receiving stats, and none of them, other than Brock Bowers, really jumps out at you. But they've got some guys who are playing well. They got some guys who can make plays. I mean, you look at the SEC stats, and you won't see any Georgia receivers mentioned, but guys like Dom Lovett, came over from Missouri. Robert Thomas, I don't think he's going to play this week, but he's had a good, he's had a good year. Lab McConkey was very questionable this one. But even with those guys out, they've been plugging guys like Marcus Roseby, Jack Saint. Arian Smith has played some decent football over the last 2 games. So they've got plenty of weapons, even though like you said, they've had to kind of mix and match a little bit throughout the course of the season.
Well, give us a little bit of insight on the injury situation. Brock Bowers didn't really play this past week. I know he dressed out. Coach Kirby Smart talking about guys who were available, kind of holding them out. What's going to be – how full strength will Georgia be this weekend?
Well, they're going to be missing some guys, I think. I mean, Brock Bowers will play. I mean, I don't think any question about that, and that's just huge all by itself because not just what he can do, but when he's on the field, if you're Alabama, you've got to account for him, and that could leave some other guys open, that kind of thing. But Lad McConkey, I mentioned him. Right now, sitting here today, I think he's probably questionable at best. He may play. Last time we saw him was against Tennessee. He had 3 reps early in the game, but we have not seen him since. He did go to Georgia Tech last week, although he did not dress out. But he's kind of up in the air right now. I mentioned Ra Thomas. I don't think he's going to be able to go. He's got a foot injury he's dealing with. And on the defensive side, you look at guys like Jamon Dumas Johnson, starting linebacker. He has a broken bone in his forearm. I don't think he's going to play. Julian Humphrey, who's a backup cornerback who's played a lot over the previous few weeks until a couple of weeks ago. He's got a collarbone injury. He will not be able to play. And even Smile Munson, who I expect to play, has been banged up, really sore right now. So that's something else that you could look for. So Georgia does have some guys, still ailing right now.
Well, let's just talk about where Georgia is as a program. You're right there on the cusp of 3 national championships in a row, something that hasn't really been done since the 30s, depending on where you're looking in the record book. How is Kirby Smart just, all right, all the Alabama people, everybody who reads my stuff is like, oh, he learned it from Coach Saban, blah, blah, blah. It took Coach Saban's 3. He's gone over to Athens and kind of, picked and chosen some of the things that he's taken from Coach Saban, but really built his own monster, really just – what's the secret to go Kirby Smart's just relentlessness?
Well, like you say, he did take some things from Coach Saban. I think, Kirby will readily, admit that. I mean, it starts with the recruiting. I mean, everybody knows how hard of a recruiter, what good of a recruiter, Nick Saban is. Kirby Smart's the same way. I mean, that's a huge part. I mean, it's all about the Jimmies and Joes. I don't care how good a coach you are. If you don't have the players, you're not going to be able to have success. That's what they've been able to do. But the second thing, again, just like Coach Saban, Coach Smart holds every single person in that building accountable. And when you have that kind of buy-in, and now certainly everybody believes in what Kirby is saying with the back-to-back national titles, it's easy for him to get his point across. And so, I mean, he put his own little twist on some things, obviously, but still a lot of that does come from Coach Saban, the lessons he learned in Tuscaloosa.
How successful is Coach Smart in still getting the Georgia players and Georgia program to believe that nobody believes him? He's still been playing no one believes in us. We're underrated, XYZ, disrespected, but it still seems like it's working.
It's working, and reporters kind of laugh about that a little bit. Of course, last year it was Nolan Smith had a comment that y'all guys didn't believe we were going to win but 7 games. I'm like sitting here saying, who in the hell said that? Who was saying that y'all weren't going to win 7 games? I mean, so you get stuff like that. But this year, you're hearing a lot that, Georgia had from Kirby, heard this from the players yesterday, that Georgia has not beaten Alabama in Atlanta. And truthfully, if you want to look at that, if you want to go back and look, it's been since 1942 since Georgia has beaten Alabama. In Atlanta, granted, 2 or 3 of those times have come in the last 5 or 6 years here now, but Kirby will grab anything he can possibly for motivation to help spur his team. Ultimately, I don't think it probably means a whole lot, but that's how Kirby Smart is. He'll reach for anything humanly possible to try to give his team an edge.
Well, Georgia hasn't really been challenged this season since probably even the South Carolina game where South Carolina had a little bit of a lead. Georgia's taking care of business the last 7 or 8 weeks. What has challenged the Georgia team this season going into Saturday? What are some things that Alabama might take from different opponents that has maybe given Georgia a little bit of trouble? Not much, but just a little bit of trouble.
Well, you look at the last 8 games now. I think the opponent has led in the first quarter in each one of those contests.
Many of them scored right off the bat, right
off the bat, and even the Missouri game, Georgia had a quick 3-0 lead, but Missouri comes back and gets a touchdown at 7-3 in the first quarter. And Georgia has to answer, which they seem to play well doing that. Yeah, I don't think this is the game coming up Saturday. They need to, take that chance. If you're Georgia, you don't want Alabama getting the early momentum. So that's something I'm really curious to see how that kind of plays out. But Georgia is just a team that's it's very confident in itself, and that's why some of these, you mentioned South Carolina game, they trailed by 11 points at halftime of that, but they trailed by 10 at Auburn before coming back in the second half. So it's a team that's been tested from that standpoint. But like I said, I don't think they really want to try to push their luck, as far as the comebacks go, when they're playing the Crimson Tide.
Well, let's hypothetically look. A lot of people had a lot of eyes on college football playoff last night, being announced. New playoff poll. Georgia obviously number 1. Alabama sitting there at number 8. Hypothetically, if Alabama knows its only chance to get into the college football playoff is to win on Saturday. If that happens, what's the likelihood of Georgia still making it into the playoff, much like they did in 2021?
Right now, I don't think that will happen. I mean, you look at the other conference championships. You look at the amount of undefeated teams. You look at the fact the committee has made it very plain that winning a conference championship is going to play a huge role. And so you're going to have Texas, for example, which I know Alabama fans would love to see them take a knot this upcoming weekend to maybe help them out a little bit. But a 12-1 Big 12 champion went Texas, Washington, Oregon State, Oregon. I mean, there's just several teams would have to lose for Georgia to lose this game and still get in my opinion.
We're talking about Anthony Dasher of UGAsports.com. You can follow him at Anthony Dasher1 on the X machine, and we appreciate his time so far. I want to ask you about Georgia native / Tuscaloosa native. Not really. Kamari Lassiter. Kamari Lassiter spent 3 years here in Tuscaloosa. Yep. He's not born here, but spent 3 years here, and I actually covered him in high school at ACA. And great kid when he was at ACA. Don't really know what how he's been received in Athens, but he's been playing very well. So tell us about Kamari and really what he's added to the secondary and really what this game's going to mean for him.
He's a shutdown guy now. I mean, he came to Georgia, played behind Kelly Ringo, who's now with the Eagles. Kind of learned the tricks of the trade from Kelly. And right now, I don't have the stats in front of him, but he is not. I don't think he's allowed a touchdown reception this year. I may be wrong about
36 tackles and 8 pass breakups for Kamari Lassiter, but I don't have the receptions.
Yeah, he doesn't have maybe but 1 or 2 interceptions. I don't think he has any interceptions. Right now, if I remember the stats off the top of my head, but he's just a guy who's able just to make plays. I mean, he's what was it? It was the game against Tennessee. The Vols tried deep throws on him 3 times. He came up 0 for 3. So he's going to be the one guy they're hoping that continues that against Alabama, because as we know, Alabama's going to take their deep shots.
That absolutely will. What's the Georgia fan base feel about this rivalry? Obviously, things are about to change in the conference. No East or West anymore. But what's the feel of these two teams get together sometime, and it's a big game, but pretty much
no doubt. I mean, Alabama for years it was the program. They're the they're what college football is all about. They're the champion. That's the one that schools, programs, wanted to be like. Georgia has kind of gotten to the point right now, winning 2 national titles, and Kirby up in the recruiting like it has. I think they're on par with them, with Alabama right now. And so, I think from that standpoint, Georgia fans are very excited. They want to be the top dog, so to speak. They want to knock Nick Saban off his pedestal, if you want to call it that, however you want to describe it. But I think it's a very good rivalry. I mean, again, there's so many similarities, I think, in so many ways between the two programs. And every time they play, it usually makes for a very, very good game.
What's something that UGAsports.com, you and your partners or you and your cohorts are talking about this week that maybe you don't think is getting enough attention, enough run as we're 4 days away, 3 days away from kickoff on Saturday?
I don't know if it's anything that people aren't talking about, but from our perspective, how Georgia is going to do defending Jalen Milroe, that's going to be the key. I have people mention to me all the time, well, Georgia's going to use a spy. I'm like, no, Kirby Smart has never used a spy. Excuse my cat killing across my plane there.
We love cats. Mine's in the other room. It's all good.
But, I think how Georgia defends Milroe, I mentioned the deep throws, how deadly he is. I think, completing 55% of those passes during the course of the year. How they defend him has been the story. I think will continue to be the story until we actually see it unfold on the field Saturday afternoon.
There's not really been many quarterbacks on the Georgia schedule that have the same sort of skill set. I mean, a little bit Joe Milton, a little bit, but not many, too many.
Auburn has some Missouri quarterback did a good job. Last week, Haynes King for Georgia Tech. They operate a lot of zone read type runs.
Yeah.
Which, from my understanding, you don't see Jalen do a ton of.
Right.
But again, he's so athletic that he can take a broken play and turn it into a 40-yard game in the blink of an eye. So that's what they have to really concern themselves with. But they have faced running quarterbacks, and again, they have been hurt. I mean, Auburn had the 65-yard run in that contest. And I mentioned the quarterback from Missouri has some big plays of his legs. And last week, quarterback from Georgia Tech did the same thing. So that is an area that that has given them trouble in the past. And again, as I was mentioning earlier, I'm curious to see how Georgia responds this week against the best runner they've seen all year.
Anthony, my parents are 1983, 84 graduates of the University of Georgia. So just tell everybody what this 2-year, 3-year span, Kirby Smart, what he's built means to just the Georgia faithful, for people who haven't really kind of grasped what it means. Man, 40 years, 40. When they won, I text mom and dad. I say, "Congratulations, Mom. It's finally your time."
Well, when you hear Georgia fans of any kind talk about the best of times, these are the best of times if you're a Georgia fan. 29 straight wins, 45-1 over the past, 2+ years, whatever it's, been now. Georgia never had a run like this. Few colleges, few schools, period, have had runs like this. So they're soaking it in right now. But again, big game this Saturday. The ultimate, test, I think, in the eyes of most Georgia fans. If they can get past Alabama, they feel they've got a pretty good shot of winning 3 straight national championships.
Absolutely. Last thing for us is, what do you think about going to happen in the game? I know you got a couple more days to think and decide, but follow Anthony Dasher at UGAsports.com. What do you think? Last little thoughts on the game on Saturday.
Well, both teams, I think, are going to make plays. I mean, you're going to see explosives on both sides of the ball, and it's going to come out, corny cliche from me, but whoever makes at least the fewest mistakes, I think in this one is going to win the game. Again, these teams are both that good. In my opinion, they're 2 of the 4 best teams in the country. I don't care what the committee says, after, Saturday is over. So it's going to be a great game. I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well. Thanks for hanging out and talking to us. This is Anthony Dasher of UGAsports.com. Make sure you follow him at Anthony Dasher1 on the X Machine. Hope you have a great day, man. Sir, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Joe. No problem.
Yes, sir. That's Anthony Dasher joining us, and we're going to keep things rolling on the Joe Gaither Show. We're going to come back with a little bit of a Mississippi State report. Mississippi State finally hired a coach. We'll find out from Kensi Brandenburg about what in the world Jeff Lebby's going to do in Starkville. We'll do that and more next, right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. Let's keep it rolling here on the Joe Gaither Show right here on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. We're now going to head over to Cowbell Corner and CowbellCorner.com to talk a little Mississippi State, as we don't just cover the Alabama Crimson Tide. We're going to cover Mississippi State just a little bit as well, as the Mississippi State Bulldogs made some news this past week in the football realm. We're going to welcome on Kensi Brandenburg of Cowbell Corner. You can follow her at Kensington Brand 2 on the X Machine, on the Twitter machine. She's covering all things Mississippi State football, basketball, softball, baseball, everything Mississippi State for Cowbell Corner. You can follow her again at Kensington Brand 2 on the X Machine. Kensi, y'all got a big Thanksgiving treat. New coach in Stark Vegas. How we feeling over there in Bulldog Land?
Yes, we are so excited to have a brand new head coach. Welcoming on Jeff Lebby has been absolutely exciting, not just for the team, but also for the coaching staff and for the fans. It was very exciting. Such a great turnout to welcome him to Starkville.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jeff Lebby gets his first head coaching opportunity here in Starkville, here at Mississippi State. What's different? With this guy? Because many of my Mississippi State friends said, Joe, we're doing the same exact thing, bringing in a guy with no experience. What in the world? What's different about Jeff Lebby than Zach Arnett?
I think with Jeff Lebby, a lot of what our issues were this past season was on the offensive side. And while our defense was great, Zach Arnett knew that, and he led the defense to do pretty well, but our offense just was not in it. And so having Jeff Lebby come in with experience on more of the offensive side, that's really going to help us, especially since Oklahoma, where he was from before, they were 10-2 this season, which is absolutely amazing. And so having Lebby come in and help us on the offensive side is going to be what really will help us improve next season.
All right, so what does the Mississippi State fans, how do they feel about Ole Miss and about Tennessee? Not necessarily the programs, because obviously the hatred's there for Ole Miss, but the way that football's been played at Tennessee and the way that football's been played at Ole Miss over the last handful of years, because there's a lot of Tennessee and Ole Miss ties with Jeff Lebby. You're going to start seeing some of that influence in the Starkville, in the Bulldogs program here going forward. What's the take on, okay, we're going to have a little Josh Heupel offense from Tennessee. We'll have a little Lane Kiffin offense from Ole Miss. They're all going to manifest themselves in Jeff Lebby.
Well, with Jeff Lebby, what we'll see is that he has that experience having been at Ole Miss before. And while the team is not the same as it was many years ago when he coached there, we'll see that maybe he still knows some of their strategies, some of their tricks. And so we may even have a leg up on Ole Miss with him having experience there before. With Tennessee, I mean, I don't think our conference schedule has been released yet. So we may not even see Tennessee on our schedule. But if we do, then what we really need is to have that offense so that we can take on Tennessee, since they've been doing pretty well this season as well.
Well, yeah, you see Jeff Lebby, he coached under Josh Heupel, the Tennessee head coach, when they were at UCF together. And then obviously he spent some time at Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin as offensive coordinator. Is there any concern over, we're giving a guy who's never been in control of an SEC program? There was a little bit of similarities in Zach Arnett in that fashion, but Jeff Lebby, he's been in some pretty big spots. I mean, Oklahoma is no small program, obviously coming from Oklahoma as a kind of a player / coach. He got hurt and started his coaching career. He's been in some big programs. What's the, is he ready to step into SEC life?
Well, with him, he's had some more experience being in the SEC, even if it's not leading a team. However, with what he's bringing to the table, the Oklahoma Sooners, they averaged 502 yards per game this past season. So we see that he knows the ins and outs and like what the team needs to accomplish in order to get it. And so there may be, if we face Tennessee and when we do face Ole Miss, there may be some tension with the other coaches depending on how they parted years ago. However, what we'll see is that he may even give it a good, cleaner game with knowing the other coaches. However, on top of that, with Oklahoma, I mean, we saw where he kind of had a little controversy with the Baylor coach and everything, but we'll see how that plays out, and hopefully he's cleaned himself up.
Okay, as a woman, I'll put you in the fire. Just kind of put your feet to the fire. How does that make you feel, both as a sports reporter, obviously, that but you wake up every day as a woman first. So like that, how does that kind of make you feel, as you had to be objective as a reporting on Starkville, reporting on Mississippi State, but obviously a little support there. You go to school there. How does that make you feel? Do you feel maybe disrespected at all? Does it matter? Is it long ago in the past to where, okay, learned your lesson? What's the deal? For those who don't know, he was on the Baylor staff during the Art Briles kind of scandal, the sexual assault allegation scandal that kind of doomed Art Briles' coaching career. Now, Jeff Lebby wasn't really prominent in that, but he was named in one of the lawsuits as one of the alleged victims went to and named Jeff Lebby, saying, I said this happened and he did nothing. Now, obviously, that was a while ago. So, yeah, I'll just open it up to you as a sports, someone who follows sports, as a woman daily, and as a Mississippi State student. What's the feel there?
It does make some nerves arise knowing that someone with that past is coming. However, I truly, as a person and a moral person, also hope that he's past that and that that's all in the past, and that what he's coming with is not that baggage with him, but instead trying to have a new start in Starkville, getting only focusing on just the team and coaching a team and nothing outside of that.
All right, so he's 39 right now. He's 39. He's going to turn 40 in January, so just a couple of months away from turning 40. During the time at Baylor, that was 08 to 2016. So what's that run us? That runs us a little over 10 years ago. So he'd have been 26. He'd have been 26 through 31 or so. Yeah, is that about right? That 8 years. He would have been 26 through 34. That range. So yeah, I mean, I'm right at 34. Hopefully, I will continue to learn and develop and treat everyone fairly and honestly and well. Hopefully, he will grow from that moment at Baylor. I kind of feel like that's a learning experience. That was his first major job, first major college job.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully, a one-time thing, and we won't even see that anything like that arise. Instead, we'll just see
Absolutely.
him
Absolutely.
coaching.
All right, so I talked to Justice Sample last week about Will Rogers transferring. What's the Mississippi State feel? What's Will Rogers mean to Mississippi State? And what's going to be the next step for, okay, we're losing our highly thought of quarterback, going to have to replace him. Is it going to be transfer portal for Jeff Levy, or is it going to be recruiting train, or is there somebody waiting in the wings to take over for Will Rogers?
Well, with Will Rogers, what we see is he has been our lead quarterback for multiple years. And with him being from Mississippi native, I mean, this is his home. So seeing him go, while it is sad, the fan base really isn't that sad because he did make a lot of mistakes on the field. So there was even chance from the student section wanting to put other quarterbacks in, asking for Mike Wright to go in instead, multiple games. And so with him gone, it may even give us a step up. And however, we do have Mike Wright training to be or maybe our QB1. We're probably still on the lookout for a new recruit just to have another backup. And because we do have Chris Parson, but what we need is a strong quarterback who can lead us, who can complete most of his passes, who can run the ball. We need a quarterback who can get the job done. So, looking from there, we may be looking at a transfer rather than a recruit. And while the team and the school wishes Will Rogers the best, we may see him go to maybe a smaller school and not necessarily another in this conference.
All right, we're hearing some Kentucky talk as well for Will Rogers, so we'll see where he goes. But it sounds like it was the right time for everyone to kind of part ways and move on. Your boy Chris Parson, he's up from your neck of the woods. You're a Nashville lady. He's up from Brentwood, Tennessee. And I'm looking through the Mississippi State recruiting class. No quarterbacks committed so far. It'll be a tall task. Jeff Levy going to have to get somebody in. That's the beauty of the transfer portal. You can get somebody in very, very quickly that's ready to play right away and make you very competitive.
Yes, so it's nice to see a player from near where I'm from. That's really fun, especially people that went to school with him that say positive things about him. So we'll see him grow as a quarterback. But having that transfer portal is very convenient. That way we can go ahead and grab a quarterback who can get the job done.
When everybody wants to play in the SEC, Jeff Levy will, get his ducks in a row. He's already retained two coaches. He retained Chris Rump, and he's retained defensive line coach David Turner. So he's already filling out that coaching staff. So we'll just see how he does. It's a pivotal next month of the season, next month for Jeff Levy, getting the coaching staff in order, securing the recruiting class for the first December 20th is that early signing date, and then starting to hit that transfer portal very hard. Is excitement kind of growing in Starkville as we move away from football?
Yes, the air of sports is very anxious here. I mean, we've seen a lot of positive things happen with volleyball, and although soccer, their season ended, they did make it to that first round of the tournament, and that was really special for the team. So we're seeing these other smaller sports come about too, and each team is working hard to get the job done.
All right, so let's talk basketball. Basketball 6-1, but oh my goodness, Kensi. Mississippi State joins Alabama in taking a loss in the SEC ACC Challenge. Alabama losing to Clemson. Mississippi State losing to Georgia Tech last night. What did you learn about the Bulldogs last night playing the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets?
Well, we started out getting even a little cocky about how the team was doing, having performing so well,
Getting
and just
ranked top 25.
absolutely sweeping other teams. So we were very hopeful for this win, and we had everyone getting super excited. I mean, we getting ranked was really special, and being undefeated was really special, and it made the entire campus excited, it made the team excited, it made fans excited. So it was really nice. But then we had that loss to Georgia Tech, which isn't creating a lot of buzz because we still have all these non-conference games to get through. I mean, the season has just barely made its way. We haven't even started with our conference game. So hopefully this was just one loss and that we'll get back up and be able to sweep the next opponent.
All right, Mississippi State still has Southern on its schedule, has Holiday Hoops Giving in Atlanta against Tulane. That'll be fun next Saturday. We'll go to Rutgers at the end of the month before getting started with conference play. All right, so you've seen them for like 3 weeks now, just still, as you said, in the infancy of basketball season through just the early bit and not having Tolu Smith. You've got the second year of Chris Jans. How is the feel of year of 2023? I mean, obviously, look, you take the loss, but it's just one game. Alabama lost on Friday and on Tuesday. It's been kind of a rough couple of days here in Crimson Tide land. What's the feel of, okay, Mississippi State, here's what we can be this year for the basketball program?
Well, we're hoping to see the basketball program grow. Jan's had a very successful season last year, and so we're hoping to see that again with him, with it being his second year. We're hoping that he can even take us further than he did last year. And although we don't have Tulu, we're kind of hoping that these other guys can have chances to show what they've got to see if they can get the team, lead the team. And so hopefully we'll get Tulu back. I haven't heard anything recent about his condition, but having him back would definitely help if even if it's when we start conference games.
All right, Kensi, tell everybody what you're doing at Cowbell Corner. What is something that we haven't talked about today that you're very excited about, or something that's coming up that you're thinking that everybody should know about as far as Mississippi State athletics or Cowbell Corner?
Right now, we're looking really close at that coaching changes and getting to see where the coaching staff will land for the next season. And we're also looking deep into seeing as soon as this recruiting class is ready, we're ready to share that with all the fans.
Absolutely. December 20th, Kensi, is the early signing date. So our next couple of conversations will revolve around recruiting. We'll talk about recruiting some of the guys that are coming up. Daniel Hill, that's the name to watch out for that both Alabama and Mississippi State fans are fighting over. The Meridian, Mississippi running back has been considering Alabama, Mississippi State, Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina. He's all over the place, but it seems like Mississippi State and Alabama are his leaders. So keep an eye out for Daniel Hill. We'll keep an eye out on the Mississippi State recruiting class. They've got right now 24/7 has them as the 42nd overall recruiting class. Got to bump that up, Jeff Lebby, if you want to be competitive in the SEC. And we'll keep an eye out on both the women's basketball and men's basketball program as we continue. Kensi, tell everybody where they can follow you and everything that you're into. I know you are about to wrap up the semester in Starkville. Tell everybody where they can follow you, and we'll keep chatting on cowbellcorner.com.
Well, thank you for having me. The best ways to connect is through Twitter at Kensington Brand 2. And also, if you want to follow my LinkedIn, Kensi Brandenburg is the name. But other than that, that's the main focus for sports.
Right there, Kensington Brand 2 on the X/Twitter machine. And you can hear her each and every time that she joins us on Cowbell Corner and cowbellcorner.com. Thanks so much, Kensi. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. That's Kensi Brandenburg. And you guys want to check her out on cowbellcorner.com. As Mississippi State Loot, there's nothing better for sports media than a coaching search. So they found their coach, Jeff Lebby, offensive genius, offensive guru. He's going to find the rest of his coaching staff, fill out his coaching staff. Mississippi State has 2 of its 10 assistant coaches already set in place. Like we said, the number 2 overall recruiting class is going to have to do some work on that over the next month and change. It's going to have to hit the transfer portal very hard if you're Mississippi State. If you're a program like Mississippi State, like a Missouri, like an Arkansas, you use the transfer portal to supplement the roster, and we'll see how Jeff Lebby and company does that. But we appreciate Kensi Brandenburg joining us on the Joe Gaither Show right here on Cowbell Corner and on BamaCentral and on BamaCentral.com. We'll keep things rolling right here on the Joe Gaither Show on a Wednesday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon, on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitter. All right, let's keep this bad boy rolling right here on a Wednesday. This is the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. I am Joe Gaither. We had a lot of fun today talking to Anthony Dasher of UGAsports.com, and we talked to Kensi Brandenburg of CowbellCorner.com. So now it's time to hit up the last few topics on this Wednesday. And of course, you can watch us always on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter at Joe Gaither6 or at BamaCentral.com. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon at the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com. Oh, look, I messed up my banner here as we are not on Cowbell Corner anymore. We are on BamaCentral.com. There we go. So we're having a lot of fun with Anthony Dasher, getting to know the Georgia Bulldogs, and it's going to be a huge challenge for Alabama on Saturday. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking to another Georgia writer, and we had a lot of fun talking to Kensi Brandenburg about the Jeff Lebby hire. Let's talk Alabama. Let's talk Alabama in two facets. First, college football playoff, and second, Alabama basketball last night. All right, college football playoff comes out, and very, very disappointing. Very disappointing. UGA number 1, Michigan number 2, Washington 3, Florida State 4, Oregon 5, Ohio State 6, Texas 7, and Alabama number 8. All right, painful to see Oregon still ahead of Alabama. It's painful to see Ohio State still ahead of Alabama. And makes me very concerned for this coming up weekend. Is Alabama motivated to play spoiler? If that's the only motivation, you can spoil Georgia's SEC national championship bid and kind of eliminate the SEC from college football playoff contention. That'd be crazy if Alabama beats Georgia and both teams are left out of the college football playoff. Look, it's going to come down to Georgia and Alabama. It's going to come down to Washington, Oregon. It's going to come down to does Florida State beat Louisville this weekend, and then what in the heck do you do with Ohio State after Michigan beats Iowa, and then of course Texas is probably going to beat Oklahoma State as well. So okay, Michigan, you say they're in. Winner of Washington, Oregon, you say they're in. There's 2. You give Texas, you see, let's say that they're in. It's 3. Florida State is 4. Oh no. Right? Did I get that right? Yeah. Washington, Oregon is 1. Michigan is 2. Michigan is 1. Washington, Oregon is 2. Texas is 3. Florida State is 4. What about Georgia? Georgia bumps out Florida State. Georgia bumps out who? Texas? Still, it's going to be very, very crazy. A fan base is going to be left out on Sunday afternoon when the college football playoff poll is decided. And it's just going to be all that more reason to expand to 12-team playoff pool. Look, I saw the current, based off last night's polls, the 12-team field would have Alabama hosting Missouri and the winner playing Georgia in the Peach Bowl. I think that would be a whole hell of a lot of fun. I cannot wait for that to be a reality. But for Alabama, all this stuff is academic. All this stuff, look, if you don't beat Georgia, then you can forget about, let a 2-loss team in. There's no way in Hades that a 2-loss team is getting in this college football field this year with so many undefeated teams coming out this year. Look, I agree with a lot of the Alabama fans who have cried about Oregon being in front of them. Oregon, not really any quality wins. Yeah, you beat Oregon State this past weekend, and you were really the only team that handled your rivalry game with ease. But Oregon, not really many other great wins. Yes, the Pac-12 has been a strong conference throughout all year, and I do think they're a strong conference. You're going to only get one of Washington and or Oregon. I've got no problem with those 2 teams being in front of Alabama at the moment because ideally, or you'd expect them to wash out. Will they wash out? I'm a little concerned that they won't wash out in front of Alabama because of what happened with Ohio State and Michigan. Ohio State loses to Michigan, not a super close game, but not a blowout. What was it? Just a 7-point win for Michigan. And great, good job, Michigan. You stay at number 2, but Ohio State should drop to 8. They should drop to 8. Michigan, everybody moves up a spot. Texas, Alabama, Oregon, everybody moves up a spot, and Ohio State should drop to 8. But that's not what happened. They dropped Ohio State to 6, still behind Alabama. And what's on Ohio State's resume? A win against Notre Dame. Congratulations. You beat the Golden Domers when they had 10 guys on the field. I don't really understand this committee. They can talk about, we're not talking about best four teams. We're not talking about we're not talking about most four deserving. We're talking about best four teams. You're not talking about best four teams the way that the committee has seeded things over the last several weeks. I think you're going to be in for a very weird Sunday, depending on the results on Saturday. Look, if you're the committee, you're hoping that Georgia beats the brakes off of Alabama and makes your job easy. You're hoping that Michigan wins easy. You're hoping that Washington wins easy. You're hoping that Texas loses to Oklahoma State and Florida State, that they beat Louisville as well with their backup quarterback to make it nice and easy for you. Look. As a college football fan, I'm hoping for the absolute most chaos. Give me a Georgia win. Give me a Iowa win. Iowa beating Michigan, maybe. Doubtful that will happen. But give me a Louisville win. Give me an Oregon win. Give me an Oklahoma State victory as well. Let's have a lot of fun on the final week of college football season. But I will say, from an Alabama contingent, from an Alabama standpoint, I see this shaping up to be a very, very disappointing end for the SEC for this year. And how crazy would that be for Georgia to be back-to-back national champions, go entire season undefeated, and then lose in the conference championship game and be left out? And how crazy would it be for Alabama to go 12 wins in a row? Your last loss would have been week number 2 to Texas. 12 wins in a row, SEC champions, but you're left out of the college football playoff, determined not to be one of the best four teams in the nation. How insane would that look? I know you don't all love Jalen Milroe, and of course he's not Bryce Young, and he's not Tua Tagovailoa and Mac Jones playing quarterback in the traditional, conventional way. But damn, Alabama is one of the best four teams. Right now, Alabama is playing football at a top four team level. And for Alabama to do that, to win on Saturday and to be left out, I think would be an absolute crime. Now, subsequently, if Georgia wins, look, they're in. If Georgia loses, does that mean they're not one of the four best teams in the country? I don't think you can say, even if they lose in big blowout fashion, which I'd be shocked at. But I don't envy the committee's position. I don't think they've done a very good job this year, but they have a very hard job, and I realize that I come from a little bit of a biased perspective. It's going to be a lot of fun to see Saturday play out, Washington, Oregon, to see Florida State, Louisville play out, to see Texas, Oklahoma State play out. I know Ohio State, you're kind of stuck in no man's land. I don't know what Ohio State would want to root for to get them in the playoff. Michigan, if Michigan loses to Iowa, are they going to stay in the playoff, in the top four field? I think the conference championship weight should be quite heavy this year. If whoever wins the SEC, you should be in. Whoever wins the Pac-12, you should be in. And from there, I think you should take the next two best teams in the country, which will probably be Michigan, and in my opinion, would be Texas, considering Florida State playing with its backup quarterback. So we'll just have to pay attention to it the rest of the week, and really Saturday and Sunday. Sunday, I think at 12. I believe at 12 noon, they'll be putting out the new college football playoff poll, and we'll see. That'll be the final college football playoff poll. We'll see if Alabama makes it in, if they're able to pull off the upset over the Georgia Bulldogs. All right, let's go to the hard court last night. You heard us talk about the ACC-SEC challenge with Kensi Brandenburg of Cowbell Corner, talking about Mississippi State losing to Georgia Tech. Well, they weren't the only loser last night. The Alabama Crimson Tide lost their second game in three. They're not a second out of three games. Losing to Clemson last night, 85-77, and just another atrocious defensive day. Giving up 1.26 points per possession on the entirety of the day, 1.65 in the second half. Second time in 3 games, Alabama has allowed an opposing player to go for a career high. It was Bruce Thornton for Ohio State 2 games ago. It was P.J. Hall for Clemson last night. 21 points for P.J. Hall as the Tigers won 85-77. And okay, yeah, were the shots... You could say the shots weren't falling for Alabama. They were okay. They weren't bad. It's the defense. The defense is atrocious for this basketball team. And if Alabama's basketball team wants to get to where it wants to go, which is be contending for an SEC title, be making a deep run in the March tournament, then they're going to have to take a large step forward on the defensive side of the floor. Look, you have shown that you can score with anyone. You want to say 77 points and the offense didn't play very well? There's an argument to be made for that. But the offense didn't play very well. But you still scored 77 points. That should be enough to win any ball game. Goodness gracious, Alabama's basketball season has been marked so far with bad defensive output. Look, Alabama has scored 77, 91, 81, 98, 102, 102, 105. Like, you have been scoring lots of points, but you're giving up way too much. Giving up 85, giving up 99. Oh, excuse me. Giving up 85, 91, 92, 67, then 46, 80, and 73. Alabama's going to have enough firepower to really be in all of these games all year long, probably. But you want to win and you want to dominate. You got to get out on the defensive end. Look, you allowed you were only 10 of 25 at the rim, and you want to have a better finishing at the rim as the season progresses. You lost to Clemson last night. You're looking at a season. You're looking at a wake-up call next week as you play Purdue, you play Arizona, you're going to play Creighton. Like, you might be looking at five out-of-conference losses in the next 2 weeks. Alabama's next big game is going to be on Monday against Arkansas State, Brian Hodgson's led team. And look, all respect to you, Coach Hodgson. Yeah, respect to you and what you're going to bring into Tuscaloosa. That game is not going to, talent-wise, Arkansas State's not going to be the same level of Creighton and Purdue and Arizona. Not going to be the same level of Arkansas, of Tennessee, and Mississippi State and Texas A&M. So Alabama's got a long way to go. He shot, 11 of 35 from the three-point line. You're getting to the free throw line very well over the last handful of games. 20 of 26 last night against Clemson. You didn't turn the ball over. Only 7 turnovers. The problem is you're not getting stops defensively. You allow them to shoot 50%, 53% to be exact, from the floor. They were 32 of 60 from the floor. They made 11 three-pointers as well. They didn't get to the line near as much as you did, but their efficiency was a lot better, a lot higher than yours was, Alabama, last night. And so, look, do you like Mark Sears? Do you like Aaron Estrada? Do you like Grant Nelson, what they've kind of brought to the team so far? Yeah, you do. They're good pieces so far. But the cohesion, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is not there for Alabama. Is not apparent right there for Alabama. You started what? Mo Agee got the start last night. Did okay. You need more. You don't have anybody who's protecting the rim right now at a high level. And so you got to have more production on the defensive side of the ball. You've got to have more coverage at the hole, more rim protection for Alabama. Just not good right now. Yeah, Alabama ranked 23, 24 after its loss last week to Ohio State. Probably going to fall out of the top 25. I'd drop them out of the top 25. Not playing top 25 basketball right now, especially on the defensive side of the floor. Losing in the second half 52 to 45. You took a 1-point deficit at halftime into a big deficit, basically because you couldn't get any stops. And whether that was them wearing you down on the inside, yeah, a little bit. Whether it was attention to detail around the perimeter, yeah, for sure. Or whether it was Clemson just making shots, a little bit of that as well. Alabama still has a long way to go if you want to be competitive in this basketball season. And we do want to be competitive in this basketball season. I do think that Grant Nelson is a very talented player. Did kind of look a little thin last night. I do think that Mark Sears is a talented player, is a little undersized. I do think that Aaron Estrada is a good little offensive player. Maybe needs a little more on the defensive side of the floor. Got to get more focus, more want to, more heart, more grit going and pumping in this roster on this team right now. And whether it's a want to issue, whether it's a communication issue, whether it's an understanding issue, Nate Oates and the boys have to get after it in short fashion, because next week Alabama plays Arkansas State, and then they play a very tough, really 10-day slate playing Purdue, Creighton, and Arizona. 3 tough games in a matter of 11 days. So Alabama basketball, short time to get things back on track. Look, we love the hoops and we love the Tide right here on the Joe Gaither Show. I was not a happy man, not a happy camper at the end of the game last night. Not really pleased with the effort. 77 points should be enough to win. You got out in transition enough. Just could not get any stops in the half-court setting. Credit Clemson. They made some baskets. They made some buckets. But you can't have 2 games out of 3 giving a team, a career high. PJ Hall, 21 points last night. Bruce Thornton going for a career high for Ohio State on Friday night. So not very good for Alabama basketball on the defensive end. Do I think that they can put it together? Of course. It's still early. Like I said, Alabama, 6-1? Is that what I have as a Alabama basketball has not played very much. Yeah, they're 5-2. They're 5-2. It's not like that they've been, played a ton of games so far. It's still very early. Not enough time to write the team off yet, but there are concerning signs when you think about postseason play, when you think about where this team wants to go, and that's SEC championship territory. The defensive effort so far through the first 7 games, not going to get it done by far. All right, so that's going to turn it down for us today. That's going to shut it down on the program. We want to thank Anthony Dasher for joining us, UGAsports.com. We want to thank Kensi Brandenburg, cowbellcorner.com. We talked college football playoff. We talked Alabama basketball as well right here on the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral at BamaCentral.com. We have a lot of fun each and every weekday. We would love it if you would subscribe, rate, and review the show either on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. If you'd share the show with a friend, either on BamaCentral's YouTube channel, my own Facebook or Twitter at Joe Gaither 6. We appreciate any of all the Bama fans, all the SEC fans, all the sports fans. Whether you hate Alabama, it's A-OK as well. Send us your comments, questions, queries, and complaints. Connect with me on all the social media machines at Joe Gaither 6. Subscribe to our other Bama Central Broadcasting Network podcasts, our friends Blue Collar Unplugged. They're going to have a lot to say about last night's loss going forward. Jacob Pickle, Matthew Gibson, and Blake Byler. Ooh, our man Jay Williams taking a big shot at Alabama basketball last night, calling it a tennis match inside Coleman Coliseum. I'm sure the Blue Collar Unplugged guys are going to have a lot to say about that, so make sure you subscribe to them as well. That's going to do it for our show today. We'll be back tomorrow with another Georgia writer to get another perspective on the Georgia Bulldogs, and we'll keep things rolling on this SEC Championship week right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.